In just the past hour, the King has delivered a personal message about his experience.
In a scenario that would have been unthinkable just a decade ago, Buckingham Palace releases a fictional emergency communique that sends shockwaves across the globe. At precisely 8:30 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, the palace announces that, in this hypothetical account, King Charles III has formally stripped Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, of all remaining royal titles, honorary affiliations, ceremonial privileges, and military appointments, effective immediately. The statement makes clear this is not portrayed as a quiet withdrawal or a soft distancing. In this dramatized version of events, it's framed as a decisive constitutional response, the kind of move designed to protect the credibility of the monarchy before the damage spreads any further. The palace claims the decision was not impulsive, but reviewed by senior constitutional advisors and endorsed by royal officials and advisory bodies before it was made public. According to this fictional reconstruction, the trigger is an alleged multi-agency investigation involving US and UK authorities, launched after a sealed intelligence referral submitted in late 2025. Investigators are said to have uncovered irregular financial activity connected to charitable entities associated with the Sussex household, prompting a cross-border inquiry that escalated quickly. The communique cites a fictional directive referred to as the Windsor Reformation Order, personally signed by the King. In this imagined decree, Charles argues that public trust, institutional integrity, and the symbolic weight of the crown must supersede personal relationships, even within the royal family itself. It's a stark message. Blood ties do not outrank duty, and heritage does not shield anyone from consequence. Within the narrative, the palace doesn't leave interpretation up to the public. The language is direct and institutional, painting the removal as a necessary firewall. It signals a dramatic shift in how the crown handles internal scandal, not behind closed doors, not through quiet exile, but through public procedural action, documented, stamped, and announced to the world in one controlled release. And in that single release, the tone is unmistakable. In this story, the monarchy is not asking for patience. It is declaring finality. As the fictional communique circulates, the narrative widens. Princess Anne is portrayed as stepping forward for a rare press appearance, emphasizing that the monarchy cannot tolerate the misuse of military symbolism, charitable credibility, or royal association for private gain. She frames the move not as a family dispute, but as a national principle, an institutional line in the sand. Prince William, in this account, follows with a brief but firm statement of his own. He reinforces that duty, transparency, and service are non-negotiable pillars of the institution, regardless of personal cost. The point is clear. If the crown is to survive modern scrutiny, it cannot appear to protect its own simply because they were born into the system. Unlike past royal controversies managed through quiet negotiations and carefully staged distance, this imagined crisis is presented as deliberate, public, and procedural. And the first visible sign of that procedure arrives quickly. In this speculative timeline, the official journal of royal engagements is updated almost immediately. Where Prince Harry once appeared with a long list of roles and titles, his name now appears simply as Henry Mountbatten Windsor. No style, no designation, no honorary prefix. The fictional record lists revoked roles that cut straight to the symbolic heart of royal service. They include Honorary Air Commandant of RAF Honington, Captain General of the Royal Marines, Patron of the Rugby Football League, and all Commonwealth Trust ambassadorial duties. Even the right to use His Royal Highness in ceremonial, charitable, or philanthropic settings is withdrawn, signaling total institutional severance rather than a symbolic reprimand. In a hypothetical briefing to the BBC's royal correspondent, a palace insider explains the move in stark terms. This is not personal retribution. This is a firewall, a necessary containment of reputational risk. The crown cannot be associated with conduct under active federal review. That line becomes the narrative's spine. This isn't framed as revenge. It's framed as containment. Not emotion, procedure, not outrage, risk management. In this story, the monarchy treats scandal the way a government treats a threat. Isolate it, cut the links, and document every step so the public can't accuse the institution of hiding in the shadows. In this fictional framework, the palace does not stop at symbolism. The Privy Council office is described as releasing a detailed severance protocol, a 42-page internal document written in procedural clinical language. It outlines how all remaining security protections, palace access, ceremonial travel rights, and logistical privileges granted under the Windsor Accord of 2020 are to be terminated immediately. Every courtesy becomes a line item. Every privilege becomes a switch turned off. Notably absent from official statements is Meghan Markle, though in this imagined scenario, her name appears repeatedly in investigative appendices referenced by U.S. authorities. Palace sources, speaking hypothetically, suggest that additional disclosures tied to charitable oversight and financial management remain under review by American regulators. Queen Camilla, within this narrative, declines public comment, but speculation intensifies after reports surface that her son, Tom Parker Bowles, had previously warned Prince Harry about maintaining ties with a former employee flagged for compliance concerns. A leaked 2022 email, unverified but widely discussed in this fictional world, allegedly contains the phrase, "If this ever reaches Interpol, we're all radioactive." Whether true or not, the rumor adds gasoline to an already burning storyline. Clarence House is then portrayed as launching a comprehensive review of correspondence between royal offices and Sussex-linked foundations spanning 2020 to 2024. The point isn't just to understand what happened, it's to identify every potential connection that could drag the institution down with it. Then comes the moment that makes this fictional crisis feel international. At precisely 10 a.m. on February 1st, 2026, coordinated statements are released simultaneously from Buckingham Palace and U.S. legal counterparts, underscoring the unprecedented level of transatlantic cooperation described here. The dramatized summary outlines three broad categories of alleged misconduct used to justify the king's hypothetical decree: misuse of royal insignia in commercial agreements, undisclosed financial transfers routed through offshore intermediaries, and attempts to bypass custodial and travel oversight protocols established under prior accords. Princess Anne, portrayed here as a senior legal figure within the royal family's Institutional Standards Committee, prepares to address the press again. Another signal that this fictional crisis is being treated not as a private feud, but as a full-scale institutional reckoning. Shortly after the publication of the alleged findings, Princess Anne, portrayed in her institutional role, addresses the press from the White Drawing Room at St. James's Palace. Her words are measured, but severe. The House of Windsor does not condone corruption under any title, and what has been uncovered represents a betrayal of legal norms and the dignity of the crown. In this narrative, she repeats the phrase that becomes the monarchy's official posture: "The institution must serve as a firewall against abuse, not a facilitator of it." Prince William appears separately at the Queen Elizabeth II Conference Center, delivering a rare scripted statement directly to the cameras. He describes compassion repaid with deception, alleging his brother violated the laws of the countries where he resides and dishonored the institution he was born into. And then he draws the line. The royal household stands with the public, not above them. Within this story, cooperation expands beyond speeches. British prosecutors file notice of intent to review financial matters under the Proceeds of Crime Act, while parallel inquiries are described as being opened by the IRS and the U.S. Department of Justice into possible tax violations, asset shielding, and false disclosures. Fictional internal memos cited by The Times claim the FBI forwards a sealed indictment package to the U.S. Attorney's Office for Central California. Then, on February 7th at 6:45 a.m., Greenwich Mean Time, King Charles is said to sign Royal Order D.226, formally terminating recognition of the Duke of Sussex title. The order's effects are sweeping. It removes remaining HRH references from international registers, voids ceremonial, diplomatic, and military roles, and instructs Crown Estates to sever fiduciary links to any associated entities. The final clause states that Henry Mountbatten Windsor shall no longer be recognized as a representative of the Crown or its historic lineage. This imagined decision is framed as the first full public severance of senior royal status in the modern constitutional era. No exile, no sealed tribunal, just open revocation. And as the fallout spreads, multiple streaming platforms and publishers reportedly pause negotiations involving Sussex-related content, citing reputational risk. Former executives are subpoenaed as cooperating witnesses, signaling that in this fictional world, the consequences are not only symbolic, they're operational. The narrative then pivots to national security. A confidential Cabinet Office briefing, depicted as involving the Home Secretary, the heads of MI5 and GCHQ, and Royal Household Security, marks a turning point. Material recovered in California is classified as security relevant and institutionally destabilizing. In this account, the issue has crossed the line from scandal into state risk. The briefing centers on an alleged FBI evidence bundle containing encrypted communications, metadata, and sealed testimonies obtained under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. These documents supposedly indicate Prince Harry received financial and logistical assistance from foreign lobbying entities with undisclosed links to interests hostile to the UK. To communications traced to encrypted servers in Montecito allegedly connect to shell entities registered in Belize, Seychelles, and the UAE. In the story's framing, these aren't random offshore structures. They're fronts designed to influence media narratives and gain indirect access to sensitive policy discussions. Following this meeting, Princess Anne and Prince William authorized the release of two internal memoranda dated October 19 and November 29, 2025. The first memo, authored by the Royal Institutional Affairs Office, warns of continued unauthorized data access protocols during visits to UK facilities under the pretense of Foundation business. Auditors flag these visits as exceeding approved charitable access. A second memorandum, written by the keeper of the Royal Archives, details an anomaly with far heavier implications. The disappearance of two confidential briefing drafts tied to King Charles's New Year transition planning. In this fictional account, the drafts, first believed misplaced, are later recovered from a concealed digital partition on a storage drive seized by US agents in California. Then comes the most public disclosure. At 10 a.m. on February 3rd, the Lord Chamberlain, Rupert Swafford, delivers a formal briefing confirming a Sussex-linked charitable organization contracted a Dubai-based digital firm, ARC and Metalworks, under an NDA for cloud storage optimization. What looked routine allegedly wasn't. Joint forensic analysis by British and American cyber specialists concludes the firm exported, replicated, and cross-indexed privileged communications, including royal scheduling data, military patronage discussions, and classified institutional planning. In the narrative's words, this isn't a leak, it's an institutional compromise of sovereign planning infrastructure. As the fictional crisis escalates, the institution begins cutting cord after cord. Later on February 3rd, Prince William, acting in full advisory capacity, files a formal declaration of legal and institutional disassociation from his brother. Submitted to the Royal Household Legal Affairs Registry, the filing revokes informal accords involving shared representation, armed protection, crossover access, and participation in the Royal Military Family Fund. A public version of that declaration is released within hours. It states plainly that the Prince of Wales will maintain no joint charitable, ceremonial, or logistical association with Prince Henry Charles Albert David. All prior privileges and cooperative engagements are nullified. The message isn't emotional, it's mechanical, like shutting down a system before it infects other parts of the network. In parallel, Princess Anne, portrayed here as royal custodian of institutional integrity, executes Clause 17 of the Royal Institutional Discipline Charter, a provision last invoked in 1972. This clause allows for the formal excommunication of a blood royal whose actions are deemed systemically corrosive to institutional security. The action is carried out through a registered writ titled Royal Purity Order 2617, signed by Princess Anne, and witnessed by the Queen's Counsel and the Privy Chamber Recorder. In this story, it's the monarchy's most ancient tool used in the most modern way. Paperwork, signatures, formal witnessing. No theatrics, only finality. To preempt accusations of censorship or internal concealment, Buckingham Palace issues a media transparency directive, granting accredited press access to institutional records related to the disciplinary actions. Redactions are limited to active security concerns. The directive's line becomes a headline. The royal family shall not operate in shadows where national stability is concerned. The British people deserve clarity, not choreography. This is portrayed as historic, the first time internal disciplinary mechanisms are open to public journalistic scrutiny. and it signals what the king describes in this narrative as an irreversible shift toward open governance monarchy, where the institution attempts to survive not by hiding scandal, but by documenting its response to it in real time. By dawn on February 5th, a second declaration, co-signed by Princess Anne and Prince William, confirms a full internal review of what is referred to as the California Compromise Dossier. Compiled jointly by the PRI Intelligence Liaison Unit and the Metropolitan Royal Security Division, the document lists 42 separate findings, each numbered, time-stamped, and supported by digital corroboration, emails, financial ledgers, metadata trails, and surveillance transcripts. Then comes the entry described as the most explosive, Section 7B. Section 7B focuses on what the dossier calls foreign entity access through private, domestic, royal-linked digital assets. Investigators allege that in late October 2025, Prince Harry authorized third-party access to a secure digital archive, originally housed within the Kensington Palace intranet, later migrated to a California-based server. That server, the report claims, was registered under an LLC associated with Meghan Markle and publicly branded as a wellness enterprise. Behind the branding, the dossier alleges archived materials far outside charitable scope, outdated military routing schedules, royal household cybersecurity frameworks, and correspondence dating back to Queen Elizabeth II's post-Brexit Commonwealth consultations. A senior royal aide, quoted anonymously in this fictional account, describes it starkly. This wasn't a simple breach. It was a cathedral built on stolen keys. As King Charles is said to seek private counsel with his chaplain at St. George's Chapel, Princess Anne convenes an emergency session of the Royal Contingency Committee at St. James's Palace. She introduces a motion invoking Section 12 of the Sovereign Safeguard Protocol, a rarely referenced clause allowing immediate digital and ceremonial nullification of rogue lineage claims deemed harmful to institutional integrity. Prince William enters the chamber carrying a sealed red box labeled Windsor Legacy Assets and seconds the motion without hesitation. His reported line, "My loyalty is to duty, not DNA," becomes another headline in this fictional timeline, emphasizing the story's theme: the monarchy choosing institution over family. By mid-morning, communication nodes linked to Meghan's California-based entities are flagged by Crown Cyberwatch for violating royal intellectual containment rules. Her Los Angeles legal representatives allegedly receive an unprecedented 10-page cease and desist notice, signed in this fictional scenario by Lady Louise Windsor, newly appointed as junior guardian of the Royal Archives. The letter doesn't just demand compliance. It draws a boundary line around the monarchy's identity, spelling out what can no longer be touched: seals, styles, trademarks, imagery, even language that could be interpreted as crown-backed. Queen Camilla's name appears twice in the redacted timeline, not as a subject, but as an unwitting enabler. The most controversial incident described involves a private wine tasting at the Montecito residence on November 15th, attended by her son, Tom Parker Bowles, and 3 unidentified foreign investors allegedly traveling under diplomatic aliases. In this account, Camilla encouraged the gathering as cultural outreach, even sending a case of vintage Bordeaux labeled Buckingham 1961. When details surface, the optics are disastrous, because it doesn't read like hospitality, it reads like proximity. And in a scandal built on allegations of blurred lines, proximity becomes the headline. By February 6th, Clarence House issues a personal statement attributed to Camilla. She regrets the incident, claims she was unaware of any misuse of the family's identity, and asks her son to suspend engagements involving perceived royal endorsement. Online discourse erupts under the hashtag Windsor wine leaks, and small protests form outside Clarence House. In this fictional world, the anger isn't just about the dinner. It's about the idea that royal symbolism can be casually present in private deals, even by accident. As scrutiny intensifies, Princess Catherine and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, are said to meet privately at Royal Lodge to review educational trust frameworks and reassess guardianship protocols amid alleged custody irregularities involving Archie and Lilibet. Their focus is damage control with a long lens, not just what happened, but how to make sure the institution can't be leveraged through children, titles, or legacy systems again. A joint memo attributed to them is later transmitted to the Windsor Ethics Oversight Panel, ending with a clean, sharp line. The next generation must rise in loyalty, not leverage. Late that evening, King Charles approves what the narrative calls the Order of Erasure, a 5-page decree permanently removing Prince Harry's style of Royal Highness and directing the removal of his heraldic insignia from official registries. In this version of events, it's described like an administrative execution: ink, signatures, witnesses, then immediate implementation across public-facing platforms and internal registries. And at William's request, the decree also bans the use of Royal Sussex in any digital, commercial, or branding context, cutting off the name itself as a marketable asset. In the final procedural step, HRH designations for Archie and Lilibet are voided in registry filings, and a BBC One nationwide address by Princess Anne and Prince William is announced to clarify continuity and future safeguards. The address is framed as reassurance for the public that the line of succession is secure, that institutional protections are tightening, and that no personal fallout will be allowed to destabilize the state-facing role of the crown. And that's where this fictional account lands. The gates of the House of Windsor closed, not with whispers, but with paperwork, policy, and a message meant to echo. The institution may forgive, but it will not be fooled again.